Continuing with our error correction, Appendix C of the Longman ibit preparation for a TOEFL test. In this one we have what we call the form comparative and superlatives, and how to do them correctly. Okay, the comparative is formed with either ER or more and than. Okay? In the comparative, ER is used with shorter adjectives, one syllable. Now there's some two syllable, but most of them are one syllable adjectives, such as tall. Tall is one syllable. And more is used with longer, sometimes two syllables, and all three syllables adjectives, such as beautiful. Now we have some examples down here. Rich is taller than Ron. Here we have that arrangement. Rich is taller. Okay, since it's one syllable, we use ER. Rich is taller than Ron. And the second one is Sally is more beautiful than Sharon. And we're making a comparison. And beautiful is a three-syllable word, beautiful. Okay, beautiful. So we would use more with that, more, beautiful, and the word than. Okay? So the superlative is formed with the, either, est, or most. Okay? That is, it was formed with the, est, or most. And sometimes in, of, or a that clause. In the superlative, est is used with the shorter adjectives, such as tall, and most is used with longer adjectives, such as beautiful. And you have examples down here. Rich is the tallest man in the room. Okay. Tall is a one-syllable word, and so we would use the est ending on it and say, Rich is the tallest, okay, man in the room. Next we'd have Sally is the most beautiful of all the women in the room. Making a comparison, in other words, or a superlative. We're making a superlative. We're comparing Sally with all the other women. So Sally is the most beautiful, and beautiful is a three-syllable word. And with a three-syllable word in the superlative, you would use most. Okay? And here they use the word of as one of the words to make the comparison. Is the most beautiful of all the women in the room. Now we come to the spider by the window is the largest one that I have ever seen. And since large is a one-syllable word, we would use est with it, and it is pronounced and said largest. Okay, and then again we have that as part of the superlative situation. Okay, the fastest runner wins the race. Well, in this one we don't have no, in, of, or that. It's just a plain statement, and we're talking about the fastest. Fast is a one-syllable word, so we would use EST with that. Here we have a chart giving us the rules for this that we read. It makes it easier to see and to remember. The comparative, short adjectives, you add an ER. With more than one syllable, longer adjectives, you would add more, and then the word than. And the superlative, you would use the word the before it. On the short adjectives, the EST, okay, and maybe you would use in, of, or that. Then again, on the longer adjective, that's more than one syllable, you would use most. Now we have some exercises, and we'll go through that. They give us first and second sentences with the corrections if they're wrong, and simply a C. Use a C or an I to indicate whether they're right or wrong. And the first one we have is I there, or it means it's incorrect. This morning I heard the unusualest story in the news. You see the brackets around the unusualist, and that is the comparative word, okay? And you can see that it is wrong. And why is it wrong? This morning I heard the unusualist. Since it is more than one syllable, we do not use EST ending on it. We use the word the most unusual. We use the word most with that, okay? And so we have the correct answer is this morning I heard the most unusual story in the news. Number 2 is C. This bicycle is more expensive than mine. That's correct. Expensive is more than one syllable. It's a 3-syllable word. And since it's a 3-syllable word, we use the word more and than. So we say the bicycle is more expensive than mine. Okay? Number 3. Today, she became the angriest that I've ever seen her. Okay? We use EST on this one because we're using it as a superlative, meaning she's angry and she's more angry and more angry. So this is her angriest. And that is correct. Today she became the angriest. Since it is more than one syllable, we use the EST ending on that, and we can use also the word that. 3, we have the word, and that. That's the form it takes. Number 4, this classroom is the hotter than the one next door. Well, that is not correct because we're making a superlative, not a comparison. And remember, in the superlative we use the EST or more. And here we have the classroom is the word ending is EST. The classroom is the hottest than the one next door. Here we have that form, the word with the ending, than. Okay. Number 5, the weather today is more cloudier today than it was yesterday. Well, then again, we're making a comparison, the weather today with the weather yesterday, And here we have, it is a comparative, so we don't use the more with the comparative, okay? Correct, to be correct, ER is okay. The weather today is cloudier today than it was yesterday. So the incorrect word there, we're using the incorrect form by putting more in there. Okay, number 6, this room houses the most ancient pieces of sculpture in the museum. Okay, let's say that that is correct because we are using most, okay, as a superlative, and using a superlative we put on the use the word more, most, and the word is a long syllable word, a long 3-syllable adjective, and so we would use the word most with this particular sentence. Number 7, the seats on this airline are wider than those on the airline that I took last week. Here we're making a comparison from one airline to another airline, and since it's a one-syllable word, we would use the ER ending, okay? The seats on this airline are wider than. We have that or in front, which is correct, and than after the word are wider than those on the airline. Number 8, the building where he works is the most tallest in town. Okay, well, that doesn't work either because one, it's a one-syllable word, so we would not, but here again, we're using most, okay, which is incorrect. It is correct to have EST on there. The building where he works is the tallest in town. And tallest because primarily it's a one-syllable word. Number 9, this restaurant has more efficient service, has the most efficient service of all the restaurants I have visited. This is a superlative, and with superlatives we can use most with more than one-syllable words. Here, efficient is 3 syllables, and it's correct for us to have most as the word, so that one is correct. And finally, number 10, the type of coffee is stronger and more flavorful than my regular coffee. Okay, we're making a comparison here. So this type of coffee is stronger and more flavorful than my regular coffee, and this is correct because flavorful is a 3-syllable word, and we use more with 3-syllable words. Appendix C6. Use comparatives and superlatives correctly. The comparative and superlative have different uses, and it's important to understand these differences. The comparative is used to describe two unequal things. As an example, math class is larger than the philosophy class. Jean is more intelligent than Joan. In the first example, the math class is being compared with the philosophy class, and they are not equal. And the second example, Jean is being compared with Joan, and they are not equal. On the other hand, the superlative is used when there are more than two items to compare, and one of them is outstanding in some way. For example, we have here, the math class is the largest in the school, and Jean is the most intelligent in the class. In the first example, the math class is compared with all the other classes in the school, and the math class is larger than each of the other classes. In the second example, Jean is compared with all the other students in the class, and Jean is more intelligent than each of the other students. Here we have a table that puts it together so that we can easily see it. Comparatives are used to show the relationship between two things, and these two things are not equal. And then superlatives are used to show how one item is outstanding in a group of three or more. Here we have some exercises that you can do as practice. They give you two of them that are done. One of them is marked with a C, which indicates that it is correct, and the other one, number 2, is marked with a I, and this set of problems and so forth. And the superlative or comparative is in brackets. Here we have, this is correct, we have the friendliest pets of all. This is incorrect. This set of problems is the most difficult of the last set was. That is not correct. Let's take a look at the chart and find out what kinds they are and why this one is correct and we need to correct it. The first one that we have is the cat, okay. We have the friendliest pets of all, not cat, but we have the friendliest pets of all, is a superlative. And if we look at the construction of the superlative, it meets that requirement. It begins with D, and then we have a one-syllable word, friend, which is a short adjective, and we add the EST to that to make it the friendliest, and then we have on that the friendliest pets of all. We use of in that category. If we look at the second one, it is a comparative. We're saying this set of problems is the most difficult of the last set was, and the correct answer is this set of problems is more difficult than. And you can see that in the comparative we use more than, and that the adjective is a long adjective, more than one syllable, so the correct answer is more difficult than. Okay, let's go back to the problems. So we sort of go into uncharted area, meaning now we're going to have to figure it out for ourselves. For number 3, the gray cat has a nicer disposition than the black cat. Is that correct or incorrect? Get your answer, what you think. I'll tell you what, we'll go up to the chart again and we'll take a look at gray cat and the black cat. They are two individuals that we are comparing. So in the comparative, you can see here that we have a choice between the short adjective and the long adjective, and I would say that this is a short adjective when you're saying nice. Okay, then it's a short adjective, so we will take the ER ending on that, and we have than. Okay, so the right answer for that should be the gray cat has a nicer disposition than the black cat. Our next sentence is, you missed the best party of the year. Okay, we can go on the comparative part, and we can justify the EST ending, since when we are talking about something that is superior and we have a short adjective, which is, okay, but it's difficult for me to explain it that way. I would say in this particular case, we have to say that it's the degrees of the word good. Okay, if you take good in its various intensities, you would say good, better, best. And that's the best explanation I have for that one. We could justify the EST ending, but I don't think that works very well. Okay? Next, we have her car is the most fuel efficient of most other cars. Now, what are we doing here? Her car is the most fuel efficient of most other cars. Are we comparing two unequals or one? No, we're not. What we're doing here is we're looking at and making a comparison with most of the cars or all the cars, okay? So, is that correct or not? The car is the most efficient of most other cars. Okay, let's take a look at the table and see if we can figure that out. Okay, so when you compare, otherwise we are comparing, but here it is not just one against the other. We're comparing it with a whole group of cars, and that would mean it is a superlative. And in that case, the superlative would be the, and this is a more than one syllable word, efficient, okay, or fuel efficient. So if we use most with that, since it's a long adjective, and we use one of the other words, most efficient of all other cars or something like that, okay? So the correct answer is that this is correct. Her car is the most fuel efficient of most other cars, since that is the superlative. Now we go down to number 6. Take a guess. The weather this year is the drier that it has been in a decade. Is that a superlative or is that a comparative? Okay, let's go to the table and see if we can figure this out. Okay, the sentence is, I think I might have stated it wrong, is simply that the weather this year is the drier that it has been in decades. And if we look at the chart, we see that is in the comparative part of the chart. When we're talking about a superlative here. So the superlative would be the weather this year is the driest, okay? And we use EST in the superlative because it is a short adjective, dry, and we use driest, and then we use the word that as in the sentence. So the correct sentence there is the weather this year is the driest that it has been in a decade. The next sentence, number 7, says, my boss is not the most understanding of bosses. Okay, so what type of sentence is that? What type of statement is the most understanding? Okay, well, we're not making a comparison here in the sense that we're comparing it with all bosses. Okay, so my boss is not the most understanding. The most understanding, most being the word that we use, and we use most instead of EST because this is a multi-syllable word, more than one syllable. Okay, I'm not going to the chart with that one. Maybe I'll go with the next one. Number 8, this is earlier than I have ever arrived at work. Is that correct or is that incorrect? Well, let's take a look at the chart. What are we doing in that sentence? We're not comparing one with the other, but we're comparing this particular instance with all the other instances that he has arrived at work. And since we're comparing it with more than one instance, we could say that it is a statement that's superlative. And here we have the superlative, and it would be, since it early is a one-syllable word, it would be with the short adjective, we would add EST, the, okay, EST earliest, and that would be the word we use with that. So that sentence essentially is incorrect. So we would say, this is the earliest that I have ever arrived at work. Let's go to number 9. I know I'm doing them all for you, but that's okay. You can, maybe I'll leave one for you at the end. Okay, leave number 10 for you. The scores on the second exam were the highest of those on the first exam. What are we doing here? Are we comparing all the exams? No. We're saying the scores on the second exam were the highest on the first exam. So we're essentially making a comparative. Let's take a look at the chart. So we're making a comparison here. Okay. Well, I take that back. We are making a... Yes. What are we doing in this sentence? Okay, we're talking about more than one. Scores. Okay, we're carrying scores to scores in the test. So we're talking about more than one, so it is a superlative. And since it is a superlative, the correct answer would be the highest. So that is correct because we're saying the highest of. We're using the preposition of. And so the answer would, that particular one is correct. So number 10 is for you to work on and see if you can get it correct. Use the chart, and that should help you. Okay? This finishes this particular part. We will now go on to the quiz over the last two sections.